Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and it's always a good day when I can bring a new manufacturer to the channel. So everyone, let me introduce you to the G6 from Xpeng. Now, as we've seen over the last few years, we have a growing number of Chinese manufacturers making their way into the UK and Europe with their affordable vehicles, and they really are ruffling the feathers of the established brands here, whether it be ICE, hybrid, but especially with electric cars. Now, it all kind of started with MG with the first generation ZS EV, because that was a proper affordable electric vehicle. And then soon we had Aura that came to the UK with the O3, then BYD with the Dolphin, Seal and Atto 3. But now we've got a new kid on the block, Xpeng, or Xpeng as we're going to call them, with this, the G6. Now, as you can clearly see from the shape of this car, it is going up against a Tesla Model Y. And yes, Tesla are in a bit of a crisis at the moment, with a lot of their owners wanting to kind of distance themselves from the brand. Now, I've had the G6 for a week and I'm going to answer a couple of big questions. Number one, what's it like? And number two, do we genuinely have here a Tesla Model Y rival? Well, stick with me to find out. Now, when it comes to the G6's styling, I think this is a bloody gorgeous looking electric vehicle. Now, as I said, they are gunning for the Tesla Model Y, and you can clearly see that when you look at the G6 in profile, which is no bad thing because the Tesla Model Y has previously been the world's best-selling vehicle. But I do think this is a much more upmarket looking car. Now, at the front we have got the distinctive daytime running lights with scrolling indicators. We got the Xpeng badge there sitting in between them. We got your headlight cluster located lower down, and we don't have any active aero. We actually have an open grille here at the bottom for cooling. And then at the back of the G6 we have got a little spoiler there. We've also got those distinctive tail lights, again with scrolling indicators. I do get kind of hints of Range Rover when I see it, but if you look at the G6, like the Tesla Model Y, it's designed to be as slippery as possible. We have got the flush door handles that pop out when you unlock the car, but here's a hint of how big the G6 is. Those wheels don't really look that big, but they're actually 20 inches. So yeah, the G6 is a pretty large car because those wheels do look quite small within the arches. And I also love this graphite grey paint. Again, it really does work on the G6. However, if you want to go for the long range version, you can go for a limited edition fiery orange, which is definitely me, but I will say this graphite grey also looks stunning. White, I will mention, is the free of charge colour when you go for the G6, and that will come in handy a little bit later on in the review. But you let me know what you think of the G6's styling in the comments section below. Do you think it looks better than a Tesla, or is there something else in the segment that's better looking than the G6? But on that note, I think it's time we leave the exterior of the G6, which is just a wonderful and beautiful car to look at, and we see what Xpeng have done with the interior. Sat in the front of the G6, you are greeted with a really comfortable, nicely designed and very well equipped interior. This really is a lovely, comfortable place to be. Now, when it comes to getting in and out of the G6, it is pretty easy because of that raised seated position, and the doors open nice and wide. But if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues and you need to use the grab handle, there isn't one for the driver or the front passenger. That is quite unique, but you do have grab handles for your rear passengers, so at least that's something. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that it is really comfortable. It does hold a big bear like me in place, and I do love the quality of the synthetic leather. It does feel like it will stand the test of time. There's also a really good amount of adjustment with the seats as well, using the buttons on the side of the seat or via the infotainment system. But I will mention that if you want to adjust the lumbar support, that is done via the screen only. But luckily you have got memory seat save, so at least that way it will remember your driving position. You won't have to go into it every time you get into the car. And then something I do like is with the steering, you have got both rake and reach adjustments. So getting the perfect driving position is easy, and it's not something that's done via the infotainment system. So Tesla, that's the way to do it. And then when it comes to interior quality, it is actually pretty good all round. We have got your soft touch plastics here on top of the dash, on top of the doors as well. We've got some leatherette here on the door card as well, and also here to rest your arm with. There is a little button here which I really love, and that's actually to open the door. Just like a Tesla, it is done electrically, but in terms of ergonomics, yeah, I do love where it's positioned, so that is really handy. And then here on the center console, we have again got your leatherette here and soft touch plastics along with some stitching, so it's nice and comfortable to rest your leg against. But yes, lower down, we do have some harder, scratchy plastics underneath the dash. But on the top half at least, it is of a real nice air quality, and we have got some fabric here covering the speakers. So yeah, when you get yourself into the G6, it is a really lovely, comfortable place to be. Plenty of adjustment, and the quality is good too. I even like the design. It actually feels like it's got a bit more emotion in here than, say, a Tesla Model Y. Now, when it comes to cubby spaces in the G6, I'm going to say they're okay, but something is missing. Now, firstly, we've got the door pockets, which are of a really nice size and shape. You can get a medium-sized bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. Now, we have got this floating center console, so on top, we have got two wireless charging pads, and they are 50-watt chargers as well. And because they know that your phone's going to heat up as it's charging, you have got a couple of cooling ducts there to channel cool air underneath your phone. So that's something I really do appreciate. Then just behind there, we got two cup holders, which are of a really nice size and depth. We got some plastic grippers as well, and yeah, they really do hold your drink in place, whether it be a can, bottle, or a coffee cup. Then just behind there, we have got your center armrest, which with a little button opens it up to actually unveil a decent amount of space as well. Now, it is lined with fabric, and it is actually pretty deep, which is really handy. As you can see, I can pretty much go all the way to my elbow in there. And then, as I mentioned, with this floating center console, underneath we got a bit of additional space, which is again lined with fabric, and we have got your USB-A, USB-C and 12-volt socket there. So that is really handy, and it is a trend we're starting to see on numerous Chinese cars, where they put these kind of connectors underneath, so it can be a bit fiddly to begin with. And then that's it, because the thing that's missing is a glove box. Now, I thought it was going to be like a Tesla, where you had to kind of go through the infotainment system in order to open it up, but no, there's actually nothing there, which is a little bit disappointing, and I'd love to see some sort of, I don't know, quirky feature there instead. So that's just something to be aware of when it comes to kind of the interior cubby space, is that there is no glove box in the G6, nor is there anywhere to store your sunglasses. But other than that, I really do love the fact we've got the two wireless charging pads. The cup holders are decent, plenty of underarm storage, and yeah, the door pockets are pretty good. It's just the fact that, yeah, we haven't got a glove box. Now, with this being a ground up EV, when it comes to physical buttons in the G6, yeah, they're very few and far between. So we've got three buttons up here for your hazard light, your SOS button, and I think like an emergency cut-off switch for the battery. And then on the steering wheel on the left-hand side, we got a little cluster of buttons here. In fact, they're actually mirrored on the right-hand side. Now on the left, they do things like change the fan strength and temperature. On the climate control, you've got your voice activation button and also a dedicated button that you can assign a task to. So for example, I've got it to open the charging flap when I need to charge up the G6. And then on the right hand side, we have got your media controls, so doing the volume and mute, as well as changing track. And there's also a back button there, which actually is for the infotainment system. So that is quite handy and quirky. We have then got some buttons then to open the windows and also do your central locking, as well as those little buttons there on the side in order to open up the doors. So yeah, when it comes to physical buttons here in the G6's cabin, with this being a ground up EV, they are very few and far between. And again, yes, it's kind of following in that kind of Tesla tradition where everything's done via the infotainment system. So let's talk about the infotainment system and the digital driver's display. Now, straight away, we have an advantage over the Tesla Model Y because we do have a digital driver display. It's a 10.2-inch display. And what I love is with the shape of the steering wheel, I've got no obstructions for the screen. Now, the screen itself is really lovely and clear. It doesn't bombard you with information, which is a bonus. And just using some of the little kind of rocker switches on the steering wheel, you can go through the various menus. But it is quite in depth. So if you do want to watch my review of the infotainment system and the digital driver's display, where I go through all of the menu options, just click up there in the top right hand corner. But what I will say is once you get going, it's really easy to read and just, yeah, presents you with all the information that you want. And then just going through some of the bits of the steering wheel controls, you can change what's on display. And then when we come to the infotainment system, this is a 15-inch display. The clarity and the just sharpness of the image is spot on. It is very much like a Tesla. And of course, like a Tesla, everything is done via the infotainment system. So it truly is a case of setting up before you set off. However, the advantage over a Tesla is that you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They are wireless as well. And with Apple CarPlay, it does take up the whole screen, which is actually really nice, especially if you want to use Google Maps. And then you just do a little flick up from the bottom of the screen to bring up your shortcut menu. But when you're on the home page, you can see the car is there. It is just instant with the responsiveness, even using 2 fingers to pinch there. It is just really lovely. And then go into this kind of bird's eye view. It has done it on the digital driver's display, so that'll definitely come in handy when I want to use the radar guided cruise control. But if I zoom in, it does kind of bring up a close-up of the car. I do love where it is. It looks like it's the Bonneville salt flats in springtime when they have the flooding, so you get this kind of mirror reflectiveness. But yeah, it's just so responsive. And I love the graphics as well. In the background, you can see a kind of Xpeng logo, and then there's a couple of moons there as well. Maybe this was set on Tatooine, I'm not sure. But when you go through the menus, you do find there's a huge amount to go through. It is just instant when you go through it. This is a real highlight. But one thing I would say is some of the kind of controls that I would expect to be kind of clustered together are separated. Now, by that I mean the mirror controls. They're not with things like seat adjustment, window adjustment, opening and closing the boot, or the charging port. They're actually kind of hidden away lower down with the drive modes. So that was a bit of a surprise. But something I will mention is that with some of these controls, as we have seen with Chinese cars, a lot can be done via voice control. So that's something I do love on the Xpeng. And yeah, when you do say, "Hey Xpeng,"
hey.
Okay, she was hearing me. You get a little cute robot just appearing there, which is now listening to me. Cancel.
Could you please say it in another way? I'm not sure I understood correctly.
Yeah, I didn't really give a proper command there. But anyway, you understand where I'm coming from. So yeah, it is a really lovely system. It is crystal clear in terms of the clarity. Responsiveness is spot on. Just take your time with it. Like a Tesla, you've got to go through so many menus to set it up how you want the car to be. And that includes things like regen braking, as well as your drive mode select. But again, you can use that with the voice control. So yeah, it's a really lovely system. Like I said, ergonomically, I think in terms of the layout and where some of the commands are, I think they do need to be put into different clusters, but I will explain everything in my full in-depth review of the infotainment system. So yeah, when it comes to being sat here in the front of the G6, it is a really lovely place to be. I do like the design in here. It has got a lovely, simple, elegant design. The quality of the materials is really good. Yes, like I said, we have got the harder, scratchy plastics, but also one of the kind of unique points as well, sitting in the front of the G6, is that you can properly relax, perhaps when your car is charging, as I'll demonstrate now.
Adjusting the seat and other cockpit settings to a comfortable state for you to start your mindfulness time.
Thank you.
Let's start by finding a comfortable posture.
Okay.
This could be sitting, lying down, or standing.
I'm in between
If it feels
sitting
okay
and...
to do so, you can allow your eyes to close. And we'll take a deep breath together to help settle in. Breathing in through the nose. And slowly out through the mouth.
Sat in the back of the G6, it is really spacious and comfortable back here, and I could easily imagine myself doing a long journey and coming out at my destination feeling refreshed and relaxed. It really is that comfortable back here. Now, as I mentioned, getting in and out of the G6 at the back is really easy because we have got the grab handles to help you out there, and you have got that slightly raised seated position. Not only that, the doors open nice and wide, but just be mindful not to bump your head on the door frame there as it starts to slope. And then when it comes to space, like I said, there is plenty of it. So that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a really good amount of knee room. I can tuck my feet underneath the driver's seat as well, and headroom is really good also, even with that glass roof, and that is standard. I could easily imagine a couple of 6-footers being sat in the back of the G6 and they'd have no issues whatsoever. I probably wouldn't recommend 3 adults because even though there's no transmission hump and it's a completely flat floor, you do find that when you're sat here, yeah, it does kind of protrude in the centre, so it's not the most comfortable, but it should be absolutely fine to get 3 kids back here. Now, speaking of kids, we got Isofix supports on the outer seats. There are no covers, you just got to navigate between the cushions, and it is pretty easy to locate the Isofix bar there, so that is very handy. And then when it comes to cubby spaces, I'm going to say it's, well, okay, it's nothing special. We've got some decent sized door pockets where you can get a medium sized bottle of drink in there. We have got your aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats, and then we have got your centre armrest, which is very nice and wide, and there's no cup holders on here. They're actually in there, and I do love the way that pops out there. It does look very cool and impressive, and those actual little holders there do feel quite rigid, so they should hold your drink in place, so that is really handy. And then when it comes to features, we have got a couple back here. So we have got some manually adjustable vents. However, if you need to do the front ones, yep, it's done via the infotainment system. We've got 2 USB-C charging inputs. We can recline the seats, so we can relax on a nice long journey. But not only that, the outer seats are also heated. But to activate them, you can either ask your driver or front passenger to do it, but also there are microphones around the car and it detects where you are to give the command. So you can actually ask the car to turn on your heated seat, which is actually really impressive because it does detect where you are. And then finally, we have got the windows, and they are of a lovely shape and size. They are tinted as well. They don't open all the way down, only about, say, 2/3 of the way, but I still can rest my arm on top of the window here. Also, I will mention that there's no drop in quality. We've still got the sumptuous leatherette seats, which feel lovely. We've got soft touch plastic on top of the doors. We've got your little fabric covers there for the speakers, as well as a bit of leatherette on the door card, as well as here on the handle. And we've also got the little quirky buttons there to open up the back doors, but you can kind of deactivate them and put child locks on from the infotainment screen. So that's actually a very handy feature and shows that Xpeng are listening and kind of concerned about child safety. So that is obviously a big plus. So yeah, being sat here in the back of the G6, it's just a really lovely, comfortable place to be. Like other cars that we've seen, I love the fact we've got a massive glass roof, and just like a Tesla and a BYD C-Line 7, that is standard, and it is, yeah, just a really lovely, comfortable place to be. And on that note, I think it's time we see what the boot is like. Opening the boot of the G6 presents you with 571 litres of space, which is actually a very impressive boot capacity in this segment, and it does beat a vast majority of its rivals, including the Polestar 2 and 3, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and even the BYD C-Line 7. However, it is about 14 litres behind the Skoda Enyaq and a bit further behind the Tesla Model Y. But when you got the boot open, you are greeted with a nice wide square load area. You could easily get a large suitcase in there or a few weekend bags, and it'll easily swallow up a week's shopping. Now, I will mention that the boot lip itself I do think is quite high, and there's a little bit of a boot lip to navigate over, so it might be difficult for dogs to jump in and out of, or if you are loading any large bulky items like a wheelchair or mobility scooter. Now, it's not devoid of features. We have got a 12-volt socket, surprisingly no tethering hooks, but we have got plenty of underfloor storage. Now, the way that the floor's been set out, it is in 2 sections. So with the first section, we have got a decent amount of underfloor storage where you could perhaps store your charging cables. And then we have got this second section here, which actually you do need to move the first bit. And it does then unveil a bit more of underfloor storage, which is very handy. And then if you do decide to put the seats down, you do have a little bit of an incline at the front, so it shouldn't be too difficult loading any large bulky items. The only thing that's a bit disappointing is that you can't put the tonneau cover underneath the boot floor. But other than that, with that 571 litres, it is very impressive, and it does put it close to the class best. So yeah, I am really impressed with the boot capacity. I would like some extra features, like tethering hooks for example, or perhaps a little netted area to store some items. But it is, like I said, a decent boot capacity, and yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with it. And on that note, we're going to close the boot down, because I just want to show you one final thing. Okay, maybe two. Firstly, the clear rear end of the G6. We have the proud Xpeng badge here presented for you. And then what we have tucked under here is actually your rear wiper. So it's not like one of those cars where there's nothing here and you get dust and grime on the rear screen. The only thing I'll say is the rear wiper, it is tiny, and it reminds me of like a little Jack Russell's tail wagging quite furiously and excitably, but at least you got a bit of clear space there on a wet, rainy day. So at least that is something. But you know what? I think it's now time we take this G6 out on the road and we see what it's like. So once you start driving the G6, first impressions are actually very positive. Now with this being a ground up EV, just like other electric vehicles, as soon as you get into the car, it comes to life. So that's something I really do like, and there's no big start stop button in here. And then once you get driving, you find that it is very comfortable, very refined, and it's actually a very easy car to drive as well. Now, because this is a Tesla Model Y rival, we have got that raised seated position. So when it comes to visibility, it is pretty good all round. So I have got a wonderful commanding view of the road ahead. And of course, because this is a bespoke EV, yeah, I can't judge where the front of the car is, but you do get things like front and rear parking sensors and 360 cameras as standard. The A-pillars, although quite thick and chunky, have not made me look around them at any junctions, so that is a highlight. The wing mirrors are of a lovely shape and size. I have got blind spot monitoring as well. I've also got blind spot cameras, and something you should know about the G6, there are 12 cameras on this car. That is, yeah, pretty impressive. We even have a sentry mode when you lock the car at night, so all the cameras are looking around to make sure no one kind of gets close to your G6. And then when I look over my shoulder, I do find that there is quite a thick C-pillar there, but we have got that blind spot monitoring as well as the blind spot cameras. And then rear visibility, I'm going to say is okay. It's kind of what we're expecting with this type of car. Now, unlike a Tesla where the rear view is obstructed by the headrests, no, there's a little bit more view in the G6, and I will say it is better than the likes of the Sea Lion 7 from BYD, because that was a very narrow letterbox view. So yeah, when you get driving in the G6, it is a nice, comfortable, easy car to drive with pretty good visibility all round. And when it comes to parking, because you got all those cameras, it's an absolute doddle. So yeah, first impressions, looking very good. Now, there aren't trim levels per se with the G6 range. You essentially get to pick what battery size you want. Now, both of the G6s available are rear wheel drive, and you basically have the choice of a standard range or a long range, which is what I've got here. In terms of standard equipment, both cars are exactly the same, and they are massively kitted out. I am not wanting for anything in this car. And in terms of value for money, it is actually very good. Now, my recommendation would be to go for the standard range G6 and go for the white paint, go for the free of charge paint, because that way the car will stay under £40,000, so you'll avoid jumping into that higher road tax bracket. So that's definitely something to consider. Of course, if you're not bothered with that at all, then by all means go look at the long range version. As I said, it's still rear wheel drive, but in terms of the actual standard equipment you get, they're both exactly the same, and they're both really well equipped. In terms of like driver aids, creature comforts, you are well and truly catered for. As I mentioned, you've got 12 cameras on this car, and you've also got 12 sensors. So when it comes to things like parking or using the radar guided cruise control, it's definitely there to help you out. So yeah, my personal recommendation, go for the standard range, keep it in white, keep it under 40k, but if that's not really important for you, then just go for the long range. Also with the long range, you do get the choice of the fiery orange paintwork, which is limited edition, and that's one that I would really like. Now, when it comes to powering the G6, as I just mentioned, there are two battery choices available. Both of them are for rear-wheel drive. Now, there is possibly going to be an all-wheel drive version of the G6 coming in the future, but at the moment, I'm going to focus on the rear-wheel drive versions and put the information on screen now for you. So if you go for the standard range version of the G6, you get a 66 kilowatt hour battery, a range of up to 270 miles, that's WLTP, 254 brake horsepower and 440 newton meters of torque, and a 0 to 62 time of 6.6 seconds, which I think is actually pretty good for this type of vehicle. Now, of course, you can upgrade to the long range version of the G6, which is what I've got here. So you get a larger 87.5 kilowatt hour battery, you get the range increased up to 354 miles, again WLTP, a boost in performance of 281 brake horsepower, the same 440 newton meters of torque, and with that performance boost you get a 0 to 62 time of 6.2 seconds, which again I got no issues with whatsoever. I'm not sure that Xpeng should bring out a performance version of the G6. It does not feel like that type of car. I've got all the power and performance that I would want and need, and acceleration, because it's an EV, is pretty much instant. So it's perfect from getting going from a standstill, or if you need to kind of overtake somebody. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of power and performance and range in the G6, I think regardless of which version you go for, you'll have a really brilliant car all round. And like I said before, I do still recommend going for the standard range with the white paint to keep it under that 40k, because you still have a very respectable range overall. And also, when we talk about charging in a second, you'll also find out that's very good as well. Now, when it comes to brake regeneration and charging with the G6, this is a real highlight. So I'm going to start with brake regen. There are 4 levels to choose from. You basically got light, medium and strong, but then you've got X pedal, and that's basically one pedal driving, and it is proper one pedal driving. This is definitely in the same kind of strength as a Nissan Ariya or perhaps a Hyundai Group car with their iPedal system. It is really impressive, and what I love as well is that it's consistent. So whether you're trying to take your foot off the pedal at 30 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, you get that same strength. So that's something I've really liked on the G6, and I've always had it in X pedal this week. And then when it comes to charging the G6, again, this is another great area for the car, especially when against some of its rivals. Now, if you go for the standard version of the G6 with the smaller battery, you have got a DC charging rate of up to 215 kilowatts. And then if you go for the long range version, like I've got here, that increases to a Tesla beating 280 kilowatts. Again, massively impressive. It doesn't quite beat the Hyundai Group cars, but do you know what? It's a very minute difference, because for 10 to 80% on both versions of the G6 is around 20 minutes. That's it. And also you get a heat pump as standard on both versions. I mean, what's not to like? So when it comes to brake regen, when it comes to charging capability, yeah, this thing is massively impressive against, again, a good chunk of its rivals. Now, when it comes to ride and refinement in the G6, I am going to say it's pretty good. Now, the ride is more on the firm side than the comfortable side. It is kind of trying to be like a Model Y, but I will say straight away that this does feel more comfortable than the pre-facelifted version. Now apparently the facelifted version of the Model Y rides much better, but I've not driven that yet. And then yeah, for kind of the bumps and imperfections at low speed, you can find the G6 to be a little bit fidgety and unsettled, but it does settle down at higher speeds. But every so often, yes, you can get that little undulation kind of come through into the cabin. But these seats do an amazing job of taking a lot of the vibration from the outside coming through into your body. So that's something I really do like, and it does mean that the G6 is a really lovely long distance cruiser. And that also comes into effect when we talk about refinement, because I'm driving at 45 miles an hour on a road that I know is not the smoothest. I've got a little bit of wind noise coming from the A-pillar. Hardly anything in terms of tyre roar. It's only now that I'm starting to get some tyre roar come into the cabin, but no, that's really lovely. And then when you're driving at around 15 miles per hour, you do get a noise that's generated to let people know that you're in an EV and you're driving past them. So I do appreciate that. But no, driving along now, 45 miles an hour, I have driven it at 70 on a motorway, and it's been, yeah, really refined. It does a really great job of taking those kind of outside noises and intrusions away from you. I do believe as well they are like double glazed glass, so again that will definitely help with, yeah, keeping those outside noises away from you. So yeah, when it comes to ride and refinement, it is, like I said, a bit more on the firm side against some of its rivals, but it is more comfortable than a Tesla Model Y. I will say as well, it's more comfortable than a Polestar 2, but I would like to see the option of perhaps some 19s or 18s in terms of wheel size, so you can get a bit more of a sidewall and it becomes a more comfortable ride, and you should be able to eke out a few extra miles of range as well. But yeah, for day-to-day driving, you'll have no issues in the G6. Now, when it comes to drive modes, there are 4 to choose from in the G6. So you've got your usual ones. You've got Eco, Standard, and Sport, but there is an individual one you can go to as well. And with that, you can adjust things like the power response, power steering, so you can actually make the steering feel heavier or lighter. Also, brake pedal feel as well. You can have a Comfort, a Sport, where it is quite sharp, or a Standard. And then what's the other one after that? And then brake regeneration as well. But if you go into things like eco mode, it will up the brake regeneration. If you go into sport, it'll take it away. So what is the G6's handling like? Well, I've still got it in sport mode, so let's see what it's all about. Now, firstly, before we do, I will mention I do love the shape and size of the steering wheel. It's got a nice thickness to it and feels lovely in my hands. I love the quality of the perforated leather, as well as the leather on the outer side of the wheel as well. So going into these corners, don't forget this is rear wheel drive only, so you haven't got that confidence of all wheel drive, but what it means is that the front wheels can do their bit, which is steering, and the rear can push you along. And I will say it is responsive in the steering. It is pretty quick as well. I'm not getting the most kind of connection and feedback from the front wheels. It does feel very much like an EV in that regard, and again kind of just lets you know that this isn't meant to be a proper sporty family electric car. This is just kind of, you know, sport mode for you. Now, if you go through the various drive modes, as I mentioned, you can also change the kind of weight in the steering. So if you have it for, say, in eco mode, the steering gets really light and it feels really over assisted, but it is very quick as you kind of, yeah, go through the corners. Just to give you an example.
Hey there.
Activate eco mode.
The eco mode is turned on.
So I can feel already the car kind of feels a bit more relaxed, but if I do the steering, it's really light and really responsive. Also, I will mention there's hardly any roll or lean in the corners, which is something I do like. Again, going from that way it's been set up with the ride, yeah, like a Tesla Model Y, which also doesn't roll or lean much in the corners. That wasn't really much of a surprise, especially when you kind of feel it driving about.
I'm listening.
Activate standard mode.
The standard mode is turned on.
So yeah, what I'll say is for day-to-day driving, you'll have no issues with the G6. It is actually a really lovely day-to-day cruiser. And I'll also do a quick check as well for you. What is the turning circle like? And that is actually very good. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of ride and refinement, when they're all kind of put together with the drive and handling, you've got a great everyday car. Just don't expect it to be like a Porsche Macan EV and have that kind of, you know, sharp connection to the car. This is built and designed to be a nice, comfortable, relaxing everyday cruiser where you can take your family and your luggage along to your destination. But it's perfect for everyday driving, and if you're not someone that likes a lot of weight in the steering, which I've got this set up to be, you can go through the driving modes and you can adjust it as well, which is, yeah, definitely a highlight. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, talking about the drive modes, I did mention that if you go into individual mode, you can actually adjust the brake pedal feel, which is quite unique for an electric car, because what you tend to get is either it's really good or it's quite vague and spongy. So I have just adjusted it and I've got it in comfort. And I mean, there's a bit of sponginess and you've got to push quite hard to get that brake pedal feel. Let's go into standard, and that's what I've kind of had on this week. I'm just going to wait for this car to go by. So, oh, that's a bit sharper. But there's a bit more reassurance there under the brake pedal feel. That's, yeah, I would say definitely at least have it in standard. Definitely give you that confidence when you put your foot down. And then, I say foot down on the brake. And then sport. So let's see what this is like. Ooh. Oh wow, that's very sharp. Blimmin' heck, I've not come across that before. That's really unique. I've never had the ability to adjust the brake pedal feel. So yeah, if it's hard accelerate, hard slow down. That's very unique. I've never had that, but do you know what? Fair play to Xpeng for giving you that option. So with my time in the G6, what have been some of the highlights and some of the little niggles I need to let you guys know about? Well, highlights are definitely the standard levels of equipment. This thing is so well kitted out. It does put rivals to shame, because with other cars out there like Skoda with the Enyaq, you have to add packs to the car, like a winter pack or a tech pack, and that just boosts the price up, which is not what you're wanting. And then you got Tesla with their kind of self-drive assist system. You have to spend like £2,500, £4,000 on it. Yet with the G6, it comes fully loaded. That's something I really do like. Now, with this being a Chinese car, yes, if you go a mile an hour over the speed limit, or as you have heard several times, cross the white line in the centre, it will give you a bing and a bong. But here's the thing. If you go a mile an hour over the speed limit, you do get a warning sound come up. But also, it says to you on the screen, do you want the option to turn it off? That's really unique. I've never kind of come across that before. Usually you got to go into the menus in order to do so. So that's something that's really unique on the G6. As I mentioned earlier as well, I love the fact we've got 12 cameras on the car, and you've got things like the blind spot cameras as well. But what you can also do is you can move it around the screen, so you can kind of move it and adjust it to where you would prefer it, which again is something I really do like. The clarity of the cameras is wonderful, especially during the day. Now at night they do become very noisy, so I don't recommend kind of blowing up the screen so you can get kind of a detailed view, because you're not going to at night. It is going to be very kind of noisy and grainy in its resolution, so just try and kind of maintain a small area there for that viewing. And then I'm trying to think of little niggles now. Oh, this, like an Audi, if I leave my phone in the car and I get out, I have a lady quite loudly tell me that my phone is still in the car. And not just let me know, she lets everyone in the car park know I'm leaving my phone in the car. So I'd like the ability to shut her off, or at least just give me a little kind of visual warning to let me know that my phone's still there. Also, because of all the various menus that you can go through, there is one that when you've got your music playing, that when you open the door, the volume decreases. So that's kind of handy if you're getting out of the car and perhaps going to load something in. But as soon as you close that door, even if there's no one in the car, it's quite loud. And I've kind of scared a friend of mine who was sat in the car, and I got out and he thought, because I got out, that the volume had just dipped. But no, as soon as I closed that door, he got the full Rammstein effect. He just got blurted with very loud German heavy metal, which he does like listening to, but it did catch him off guard. And then I think probably one of the big niggles that I've come across as I get going is that Xpeng really want you to use... Cancel.
Could you please say it in another way? I'm not sure I understood correctly.
Okay, she's gone. Luckily, she's not hanging around like on other cars. So the big thing is, I do feel that Xpeng want you to use the mobile app, because the key, which is here, it's not keyless entry. I have to press a button to unlock the car. That's very old school and not what you're expecting from a brand spanking new electric vehicle. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, I will put something up at the bottom of the screen if that's actually false and I just haven't found it in the infotainment system. But I have found that to lock and unlock the G6, I've had to use the key. So yeah, that was a big surprise. But other than that, I've been really impressed by this. The sound system on this is wonderful. I'm going to butcher its pronunciation. I'm just going to call it X-Opera. But basically, I don't know if this is an in-house team that are working on the G6, but you've got 18 speakers, and I think it's 960 watt sound system. It is just lovely, and I've been listening to a lovely variety of artists, and yeah, I've been massively impressed. Oh, something I do like, and it is a little thing, but I have noticed it, that if I want to kind of turn left and I put the stalk down to turn left and indicate left, I can hear the indicator going off on the left hand side. If I'm doing right, I can hear it over here. So that is actually something I really do like. And not only that, it is quite loud. So if you do forget to cancel the indicator, or it doesn't self-cancel, you do get that reminder there. You do get that kind of audible warning that you need to disengage the indicator. Yeah, I think that's everything now, and I think it's time we kind of move on to a conclusion. So, what are my thoughts on the Xpeng G6? Well, I asked two questions at the beginning of this review. What's it like, and is it a true Tesla rival? And, well, how does it compare against other rivals in this segment? Like BYD, this is, I think, going to cause a few upsets, because it is a gorgeous looking car. I absolutely love the looks of it. It is jam-packed full of tech, so much so that you don't need to do anything else other than spec a colour, and I think it drives very well. Now granted, I do think it could be improved upon in regards to the ride comfort. That's one area I do think Xpeng need to look at the G6. But in terms of standard equipment, in terms of the infotainment system, which for the most part is absolutely brilliant, I think you've got an amazing all-round package here. And at a time where a lot of people are wanting to distance themselves from Tesla, not particularly in the UK, but definitely in the US, where people's Teslas are being attacked. Okay, granted, that was probably a wrong country to choose because they can't get Xpeng, but this is definitely one car to look at, because you will be impressed with the space, the tech, and I think the looks as well. This annihilates a Tesla Model Y when it comes to looks. Even the facelifted version, I'd still prefer this. And that does lead me on to one final thing. There is a rival to the G6 which it can't compete with, And it's not from Volkswagen Group. It's not from Hyundai Group or Stellantis or even Tesla. It's from Xpeng, because the facelifted version of the G6 has already been unveiled. It's already been seen. You can go onto videos on YouTube. And that's a little bit of a worry if they're looking to bring that car out to the UK and Europe in kind of a relatively short time period, or are they looking to have us keep this pre-facelifted G6 for the time being? But I think when it comes to price, particularly with the standard range, technology, the looks, the space, and just the general drive of the car, I think it is a brilliant all-round package. Now all I need to do is get one of these from Xpeng UK in orange, and then I'm going to move, because that way they won't be able to find me, because I really do like this. I would have this instantly over a Tesla Model Y. I wasn't impressed with it, and I found some of its efficiency, although it boasted really good efficiency in some areas, in other areas it really did fall short, and it did genuinely surprise me. But yeah, I would have this over a Tesla Model Y, even the new one. I would have this, I think, over a Skoda Enyaq, although there is a facelifted Enyaq literally coming out imminently. And unfortunately, I've yet to test a Skoda Enyaq on the channel. It's not my fault, it's down to Skoda. But yeah, this is definitely very, very high on my list. Hence why I've done this review. I've done a range test. I've done an infotainment test, because there's a lot of people out there that want to get away from a Tesla. And this is a car I really want to help you get into, because I think you'll be really impressed by it. I am. I certainly am. So yeah, the Xpeng G6, I bloody love it. I really do. They got the looks right. Yeah, really do like it. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my full review of the new Xpeng G6, and I want to say a massive thank you to Xpeng UK for actually getting me this car surprisingly early. I was not expecting to get this car until, say, June, July time. So a massive thank you to you guys and the team. As always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. Of course, if you've got any questions about the Xpeng and my time with it, put them down in the comments section below, and I will do my utmost to answer them for you. And of course, yes, I'm on Facebook, Instagram and X for additional content, so you'll see more about the G6 on there also. But everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this review. I've really enjoyed this car. I've really enjoyed the fact that I've been kind of one of the first people to get to have a proper drive of it. And again, a massive thank you to Xpeng UK. So guys, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So take care, and bye-bye.